Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
It's our fun unit, and we're going to be talking about some fun phrases, some idioms that are always fun to learn, I think. I knew all of these very well, except for one of them. Irish goodbye.
Yeah, that was new to me too. But of course, we do have lots of phrases that involve countries.
Yep.
You might have them in your own languages here in Taiwan. I don't know. But we're going to talk about some of those phrases that do involve the names of countries. So without any further delay, we're going to read through our entire article now one time.
When you study a language long enough, you will realize that its words and phrases often hide weird, complex histories. Idioms that use national identities are the perfect place to begin such an exploration of English. Many colorful turns of phrase rely on historical rivalries and stereotypes. In order to acquaint ourselves with this aspect of English, let's look at some examples of these country-based idioms. Pardon my French. The English and French have a long history of aggression. As a consequence, English has more than a few phrases that frame the French as rude or poorly behaved. Pardon my French, sometimes phrased as excuse my French, is a half-hearted apology for swearing or using foul language. It should not be interpreted as a sincere statement, but rather a way to slip in a relatively minor bit of crude language. Example: I really hate the noise from that damned construction site. If you'll pardon my French. Irish goodbye. It's hard to say whether the English hated the French or the Irish more. Perhaps as a way to justify their awful treatment of Ireland, the English like to portray the Irish as lacking manners. When this phrase was fashionable, it was considered terribly rude to leave without thanking the host and saying goodbye to others at an event. It is therefore this rude behavior that makes up an Irish goodbye. Example: I'm tired of this party. Let's just do an Irish goodbye.
Okay, we're going to explain the contents of today's lesson, everybody. So, of course, the names of countries are used often in our languages in various phrases. Of course, the most common usage of country names comes in food names like Danish pastries,
Sure.
French toast, Belgian waffles, Canadian bacon, Swedish meatballs, etc., etc. But we've got some phrases, some kind of slang phrases that involve the names of countries as well. And we're starting with the question, are they all Greek to you? Of course, Greek is the adjective to describe anything from Greece, also the language as well. And so if you say, it's all Greek to me, that means you don't understand, like when I came to Taiwan and I heard people speaking Taiwanese, it's all Greek to me. I don't understand a word of it. But indeed, all of these might be Greek to you if you're not familiar with these phrases.
So that phrase in itself just means I don't understand any of it. Often you would hear older people who aren't familiar perhaps with computers and digital technology say, yeah, it's all Greek to me. I don't get what you're talking about. So that's a phrase you can use if you don't understand what's going on. It doesn't have to be a language. It just could be a particular area of study. Like I said, my mom would say that about computers when I'd be trying to help her navigate email and things like that. And it's all Greek to me, Steph. So yeah, if it's something you don't understand, you can use that phrase. So when you study a language long enough, you will realize that its words and phrases often hide weird, complex histories. I think that's the one fun thing about language, though, is even some of our idioms in English that we've been using since we were little, I don't know where they came from or where they got started, but there's a couple of websites online. There's one I go to. It's Phrases. And it's a UK site, so make sure you're looking at the American interpretation, but it will try to give you some sense of history behind different idioms or just phrases that we use. And sometimes they're really interesting. So, yeah, it's part of a language. And if you are thinking, wow, this is a weird thing to say. What could that possibly mean? I feel that way when I hear Chinese idioms. If I hear, the 4 characters together, I don't understand anything, I immediately know it's a Chengyu. So I get out my dictionary and I look it up. So it's like that in most languages. Everyone has idioms.
Indeed, of course, in Chinese, you have those 4-character phrases that all come from old stories. I can't think of exactly what it is, but there's a story about some guy on a boat and he dropped something in the water. So he wants to try to remember where it was. So he marks on his boat or something like that.
Yeah.
But of course, that's a dumb thing to do because the boat is moving. All of these idioms and phrases seem to have some sort of origin.
Yeah.
So indeed, is it Greek to you? I'm not quite sure exactly where that comes from, but let's talk about some other ones here. Idioms that use national identities are the perfect place to begin such an exploration of English. So indeed, we are going to specifically focus on idioms that use national identities, either the name of a country or the word to describe the people or language, like Greek or Irish or whatever. Ireland is the country, of course, France or French, etc., etc. An idiom, of course, is just a phrase that uses different kinds of words put together to make some kind of interesting meaning. Of course, the idioms in Chinese, there are all sorts of them. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but we've got some in English that do specifically refer to countries or things that have to do with those countries.
Right. That website I was talking about earlier is called phrases.org.uk, and you can search by word. So it's all Greek to me. I just pushed the G button for Greek, and it came up. So it just means I don't understand what you're talking about. And it comes from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar.
Okay.
So that's where it comes from. So that we can thank Shakespeare for a lot of our idioms or
There's
phrases.
something rotten in Denmark.
Yeah.
That's from Shakespeare as well. A lot do come from Shakespeare. Of course, I think he got them from other places. But many colorful turns of phrase rely on historical rivalries and stereotypes. A turn of phrase is just a unique way of phrasing something. And a rivalry means people are competing against each other. They tend to hate each other. We talk about sports rivalries all the time. Your school might have a rivalry with some other school. And a stereotype is just some kind of image you have of someone else based on little information. You might have stereotypes about certain people being lazy or being loud or liking fattening food or things like that.
Yeah, women are bad drivers is a big stereotype. They're widely held views. We've had them for a long time. But usually they are oversimplified. You need to get to know the person before making that kind of judgment and putting that label on everybody, which isn't fair. But we have stereotypes for a reason, as we like to say. There's a reason why they exist. So in order to acquaint or get to know ourselves, you want to acquaint yourselves with this aspect of English. We're going to take a look at some examples that involve countries. So these are country-based idioms.
Okay, so let's talk about France now, the land of cheese and grapes and berets. And the phrase is, pardon my French. Okay, what does that mean, pardon my French? Well, the English and French have a long history of aggression. We could say that they have had a rivalry for a very long time. They even fought wars between each other from time to time. So aggression, of course, is when people are trying to attack someone else or be violent with them. Indeed, they do have a long history of such things.
One of the things I've noticed on my cooking shows, Tom, is that when I'm listening to the Brits prepare a dish of food, they purposely don't pronounce the French term in the way the French would. For example, we always say a fillet of fish. In America, we actually pronounce that word fillet with a T at the end, the way the French would, fillet, and we don't say that T. But if you're listening to a British cooking show, they will say the fillet. And I think they do it because they just want to make the French kind of go, ugh.
Could be.
It's kind of funny. They have have a lot of that sort of thing. They say pasta in Italy. So what do the Brits do? They say pasta. So we say pasta in America, but the Brits will say pasta. And I think it's just that those European countries are so close. It's like kind of elbowing a brother or sister and kind of, making them mad a little bit. They don't always hate each other, but they've had definitely had some bad experiences and wars with each other in the past. So, pardon my French, they have a long history of aggression. We talk about aggression when we're talking about some situation that gets kind of hostile and even looks like it might break out into a fight. I used to teach business English, and I had people that were constantly saying, I want to be more aggressive. I said, don't use aggressive at work. Use proactive. It's better because aggressive gives us, that word has the sense that you want to, get ahead by putting other people down or hitting people or, being a little bit too rough. Just say, I want to be more proactive. I want to be a go-getter. Aggression, again, we use that to talk about kind of a hostile situation where something bad could break out, right? Like maybe two dogs that don't like each other and they start growling. One might attack the other.
Right there, expressing strong signs of hostile aggression, like when you're trying to drive in Taipei traffic during rush hour. You need to be aggressive. But yes, if you want to pursue a career, you should be proactive or you should be ambitious. So again, we're talking about the English and French rivalry. They've had a long history of aggression. And as a consequence, English has more than a few phrases that frame the French as rude or poorly behaved. So this is a result of this rivalry, of this mutual aggression. That's what a consequence is. If you don't go to the doctor ever in your life, well, the consequence is you're probably going to get a fatal disease and die.
Oh, I wanted to mention quickly before I forget and we take a break. You can pronounce hostile the way I just did or like Tom did, hostile. They're both correct. And as you know, in English, especially in America, we have several different pronunciations available. So it could be hostile or hostile. They're both great and acceptable. Right now, someone who's never hostile to our listeners is our Chinese teacher. We're going to listen now.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天要来带大家看一下有关于国家的片语的大集合哦。当我们学一个语言学得够久的时候，我们会发现其实学语言好像就是在学文化耶，因为我们会发现例如说英文或日文的单字啊、片语啊，往往会隐含着很复杂的一些历史 histories 在背后。所以语言学家会跟我们讲说，要把语言学好，其实就要了解他们的文化。而使用这些国家认同的谚语，就是开始这种英文探索的理想起点。我们来看一下第一段第二句的地方，在主词的 idioms 之后带了一个限定用法的关系子句。主词是 idioms， 后面从 that 一直到 identities 的地方是修饰这种谚语，哪些呢？就是使用national identities， 所谓国家认同。因为其实语言当中啊，都会有一些对于历史竞争啊，或者是历史当中对于其他民族的刻板印象，所以我们现在就要来看第一个呢叫做 Pardon my French。 Pardon my French， 原谅我的法文。原谅我法文是什么意思呢？为什么中文会说原谅我讲脏话？因为其实英国跟法国他们有悠久的侵略的历史哦。那因为这个侵略的历史，所以英文有很多的片语就直接把法国人描绘成粗鲁啊、行为不端正啊等等的。我们来看一下这个片语当中第二句。首先 as a consequence， 这里的 as 是介系词，作为身为。consequence 就是我们比较熟知的result 结果，可是这其实要把它当成一个整体的片语来说了哈。as a consequence 或者是 as a result， 因此就是因为之前英法常常会打来打去的有侵略的历史，所以英文其实有一些，而且其实不止一些哦，关键在于 more than a few 这4个字可以框起来。如果你看到 a few， 它指的是可数名词的一些 some， 但是如果是 more than a few， 它就是很多，其实就有 many 的意思。但是在这里的 more than a few phrases 这5个单字后面带了一个限定用法的关系子句，这个关系子句从 that 一直到句尾，这些片语如何呢？That frame the French as rude or poorly behaved， 中间动词的 frame A as B， 其实就有视 A 为 B 的意思。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue. You know, we did say we're going to tell you the meaning of the phrase, pardon my French. We haven't quite got around to it yet. But the point is that the English and the French kind of have a rivalry with each other. So the English try to portray the French as being lowlifes and rude, poorly behaved, uncivilized, and things like that. So pardon my French, sometimes phrased as excuse my French, is a half-hearted apology for swearing or using foul language. Now, a lot of people, of course, think the French language is, oh, so beautiful. But the English, well, they think, nah, I don't think so, folks. You know, if you're speaking French, it sounds like you're swearing at people. It sounds like you're fighting or something. So if you say, pardon my French, well, that's kind of an apology for using nasty words, 4-letter words, foul language, which we can't demonstrate here. This is a family program, of course. So if you accidentally say a swear word in mixed company, usually what happens is you're talking to your buddies, if you're a guy, and you throw out an F word here and there, and then you realize, oh, there's a lady here. Then you say, oh, pardon my French. I shouldn't be swearing like that in your presence.
We actually do include a swear word in this because I had to say it. Damn. We'll get to that. If you give someone a half-hearted apology, it means you don't really mean it. Like, oh, sorry, but you really aren't sincere. So that's what a half-hearted apology is. Apology is just saying you're sorry for something you did that might have offended or hurt someone. Here we're talking about swearing or using foul language. My mom hated the word fart, and so we had to apologize to my mom just for the word fart. So it depends on families and what they will accept and not. In this example that we're giving to you here, we're using the swear word damn, and we'll often put an ed at the end to turn it into an adjective. That damned construction site. A lot of times it just sounds like we're saying damn, though, without the ed.
That's a soft one, though. There are other words that are harder than that. But again,
I don't use the F word, FYI.
Yeah, we can only give that word here as an example because the other ones are too harsh. But, of course, it should not be interpreted as a sincere statement, but rather a way to slip in a relatively minor bit of crude language. So, indeed, sometimes you do want to use a harsh word in your conversation. So you may use this phrase, pardon my French, to basically get away with cussing.
Cussing is the same thing as swearing. It's just a little bit more informal, I would say. Yeah, we used cussing when I was a little kid. Stop cussing. I'm going to tell Mom. So the third one here we've got for you is before we get there, we didn't talk about the construction site.
Yeah, this is the example. As you said before, I really hate the noise from that damned construction site. Construction, of course, is the process of building something. Oh, wow, there's a construction site over there. They've been working on that building for 6 months. I'm sick of hearing the jackhammers all day long. That's construction. You could also say, my uncle works in construction. He helps build houses and he works building streets and things like that. And so, yes, indeed, you might say this if you're sick and tired of hearing the construction noise all day long.
And you hear it a lot, at least in Taipei, don't you? People are always remodeling. Notice here, it is a non-count noun. Please don't say construction's going around, going on in my neighborhood. No, there's a lot of construction going on in my neighborhood. It is irritating and annoying, especially on weekends. You might want to sleep in a little later and wow, They start early sometimes. So, yeah, that's their example here. The damned construction site, and then you'd add on that little, oh, pardon my French.
Yeah, we're going to move on now to the Irish goodbye. We have good impressions of Ireland. They've got great whiskey, they've got great music, and great literature, and things like that. But I guess English and the Irish don't particularly care for each other in some instances. Let's not talk about the situation in Northern Ireland. That's probably one reason why they hate each other so much. But indeed, it's hard to say whether the English hated the French or the Irish more. Yeah, which country do the British or the English hate more? The French or the Irish? It's a good question. And perhaps as a way to justify their awful treatment of Ireland, the English like to portray the Irish as lacking manners. So indeed, if you're Britain, you're a powerful country and you've probably taken advantage of Ireland quite a bit. And to justify your actions, you say, well, they wouldn't be able to take care of themselves anyway. They're a bunch of savages. They need us to civilize them.
Yeah, all they do is drink all day. They're just a bunch of drunks. Yeah.
This happens all the time, of course. You hear these stereotypes all the time. But indeed, the English in the past liked to portray the Irish as lacking manners. I don't think they look down on the Irish so much anymore. But we've got the word portray here, which means you kind of depict or describe someone in a certain way. Okay, so they portray them as being drunken idiots and they're lazy and they don't work hard like the English do. So they're trying to make the Irish look bad.
I have to say, I've been to all of these countries and I have opinions on all of them. But the Irish are some of the nicest, most friendly people you'll meet. They're really kind to visitors and strangers. I had a great time in Ireland. They also have produced great writers. So, yay to Ireland. It's also beautiful. I think you guys would find it kind of cold, though. It rains a lot, but it's a lot colder, so that rain is really chilly. Even in the summer, it was quite cool. So if you portray, as Tom said, you kind of depict somebody. It could be in a work of art or a piece of literature, how somebody writes about somebody, describes them, how somebody paints somebody. Or if you're an actor or an actress, you could portray someone in a TV movie or a film on the big screen. That's a way to portray someone. But here we're using it to talk about how you describe someone, the kind of characters or characteristics you give that person. So they portray the Irish as lacking manners, kind of being just uncivilized, kind of boorish. So when this phrase was fashionable, it was considered terribly rude to leave without thanking the host and saying goodbye to others at an event. I still think you should do that, by the way, unless it's a huge party and there's no way you can say goodbye to everybody, but you at least should say goodbye to the host.
Indeed, and if you don't do those things, it's considered rude.
Yeah.
It is therefore this rude behavior that makes up an Irish goodbye. And so that's considered rude if you leave without saying goodbye to the host or if you don't thank them for the food and the drink and stuff like that. So someone will say, hey, that's an Irish goodbye. You just left without saying anything. Here's an example here. It says, I'm tired of this party. Let's just do an Irish goodbye. And that does sometimes happen. You go to a party and there are dozens and dozens of people there. You're not having a good time. And you think, well, we could go to try to find the host and say we're leaving and stuff like that. But let's just go anyway. They won't miss us. Let's do an Irish goodbye.
But it isn't very polite. Just keep that in mind. If you were throwing the party, you were hosting the party, you would appreciate people saying, hey, thank you for arranging this, because it's kind of a hassle, to be honest, if you're hosting a party. So don't give anyone an Irish goodbye. Be careful that you don't have to say, pardon my French, and we hope this isn't all Greek to you in the future. Right now, guys, we're going to listen one more time to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to wrap up.
而 pardon my French 有时候就会被说为 excuse my French， 它其实是真的是一个 apology 吗？它其实不是真心的 apology。我们接下来看到第三句哦。第三句首先在 pardon my French 之后有一个非限定用法，补充说明关系子句的简化，在逗点之后少的是 which is。那这里 is 带着是后面的一个被动 be phrased as， 就是被说成 excuse my French。那它其实是一种 apology， 但是 apology 前面有一个形容词叫做 half-hearted。half-hearted心只有一半，那就不是真心的。好，那么接下来我们就提到啦，这个非真心的道歉它真的是道歉吗？没有啦，其实它是要被解释成一种比较不诚恳的陈述，偷偷塞进相对比较少的一些粗野用语的一种方法。好，所以接下来呢，我们就看一下第二个 Irish goodbye。爱尔兰式的再见是什么样的再见？难道英国人跟爱尔兰人也有仇吗？有，因为这个片语其实告诉我们啦 It's hard to say， 很难说英国人是比较讨厌法国人还是讨厌爱尔兰人。到底为什么会出现这样的片语呢？其实有可能是为了证明英国人对爱尔兰的那种恶劣很正当，所以他们也会把爱尔兰人描绘成缺乏礼貌、很粗鲁等等的这样子的行为。所以在 Irish goodbye 这个描述这一段当中，第二句我们看一下 perhaps as a way， 或许是作为一种方法。 a way 后面带了一个 to do something 的形容词片语哦，形容这个 a way 方法是什么。那么 to 后面的 justify 一直到 Ireland 都是用来修饰这个方法。然后接下来我们又看到在同样这个句子当中，视 A 为 B， 描绘 A 如同 B， portray A as B 的用法。好，那这个片语当它在盛行的时候啦，现在比较没有这样子，因为现在就是说不要 discrimination， 不要有一些歧视啦，去区分啦，哪一国啦，大家要和平啊，共处啊。但是以前当这个片语很盛行的时候，通常是指的在活动当中不感谢主人，然后呢跟其他人呢也不道别就直接离开了，当时认为这样子的行为是非常无理的。同样在这一段我们看第三句的地方，首先逗点前面的 fashionable 指的就是 popular 盛行，逗点之后的 it 是一个虚主词， it was considered 什么事是被认为非常 rude 非常粗鲁的呢？后面 to do something to leave 一直到句尾才是真主词。好，所以在这里又有一个虚主词的句型，因此像这种无理的行为就构成所谓的 Irish goodbye。 不过同样在第四句，这里的 it is 跟后面的 that 三个字要框起来哦，因为在这里的 it 不是什么虚主词的用法， it is 跟 that 是一个强调句型，它要强调的是 this rude behavior，这个粗鲁的行为 makes up an Irish goodbye， 就形成了所谓爱尔兰式的再见。那句子原本是完整的，就是 this rude behavior 主词加动词 makes up 受词 an Irish goodbye， 可是没有任何的强调嘛，所以我们把主词的粗鲁行为放在 it is 跟 that 的中间，在英文当中就会有强调，中文翻成正是这种无理的行为就构成了 Irish goodbye。 希望大家喜欢今天的内容，我们明天还有2个国家片语大集合哦。我是 Anna， 我们明天见。
That's it for today's lesson, but please join us again next time when we continue to talk about some phrases that mention countries or people from those countries, as we did today concerning France and Ireland. We look forward to seeing you then. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
See ya.